Our first speaker today is Chris. You're up, buddy.
Hi, I'm Chris. I'm an alcoholic. I've got about a year and almost 4 months now. Thank you. I came to Redondo Beach from Santa Cruz for detox, for kratom, which I'd been pretty addicted to for about 3 years, starting at the pandemic. It got me really twisted. I was going through some personal issues related to a hate crime attack, some legal issues that kept on getting dragged on, and I thought that the kratom was a good way to solve the anxiety, PTSD, and depression, and it worked really well for about 9 months. And then the pandemic started. I was in a really stressful situation in school. I ended up taking more and more of it. I started going a little nuts. I didn't pass one of my classes. I got kicked out of the program that I was in, and I just spiraled. I ended up self-isolating for about 3 years. Prior to that, let me start over. I'm from Santa Cruz. I've always been a really sensitive kid. I've been sensitive to fluorescent lights. People have always told me that I'm a really sensitive person. I started smoking pot with my friends in high school in sophomore year. I started doing a little bit of crank in my junior year. I swore that I would never do it again. I was in a water polo game. The water polo game went into overtime. Someone broke their neck in the pool. It ended up going on for hours, and I swore that I would never do it again. And then I ended up doing it again in my early 20s. I was in San Francisco in art school, and I started using meth as well. I've limped along for the past 20 years making excuses. It's always someone else's fault. It's never my problem. And having that low point in my life, the kratom, the self-isolation that brought me to the detox in Redondo was the best thing that ever happened to me. I thought that I would be in the detox for 3 weeks and then I would go home to Santa Cruz. And listening to the panel speakers and identifying with their stories made me realize that I belong here and I need help and I need to stop making excuses for my own problems and blaming other people for what's going wrong in my life. There was an amazing big book scholar at the detox that I was at, Clear Recovery in Redondo Beach, Ron White, who really made the big book accessible to me. I thought previously, in my 30s, I'd gone to an NA meeting. I told my parents that I had a problem with Coke, really it was meth, and I went to this NA meeting and I thought, these people are fucking nuts. And I walked out and I kept on limping along for the next 12, 13 years. So when I got to the detox place and I started hearing about this AA stuff, I thought, this is a fucking joke. And when Ron White started to talk about some real intellectual issues in the book, how Carl Jung was instrumental in getting a lot of these things started, it really opened my eyes to what the book was saying. I was able to get past a lot of my religious preconceptions. I can still remember where it is on the page where it talks about not being able to see the forest because of a few bad trees. And that was my existence. I had little problems here and it completely blocked my ability to appreciate a lot of important things about religion, about coming together, about helping other people. I ended up going to a 90-day outpatient program after the detox. I ended up being in a sober living house for about 9 months. After the 90-day outpatient program, I got a get well job at CVS, and it was exactly what I needed. My background is in escrow, real estate escrow, and so I just needed to get back out there working with people. I got really pissed off at CVS one day and I thought I need to get a new frickin' job. And so I printed out some resumes and I pounded the pavement. I handed out 7 different resumes to 7 different ESCO companies in one day. And the next day I got a call back. And I've been employed at an escrow company up in Calabasas now for about 4 months. I moved out of the sober living house about 5 months ago. I'm living in Culver City. I've got a sponsor that I love working with. When I first sat down with him, he said, I am not here to be your best friend. I don't need you to call me every day. I'm here to help you through the steps, and please call me for whatever you need. But it's for the step work and it's for the program. And that's been amazing for me. That's been exactly what I needed. There's a different sponsor for everyone out there. And I was really lucky to find a great sponsor that I can work with. I'm currently on step 10. I've kind of been limping along on that for a while. But I'm close to finishing up. I've got a commitment here, the sound commitment, that has been incredible. I really, really, really enjoyed this commitment. If anyone else is interested in a commitment that has been great for me, please let me know, because I'm ready to hand it off to someone else that it can help. I've also got a commitment at a Monday night meeting in Santa Monica that I really, really enjoy. I go to about 2 to 3 meetings a week. My sponsor says I should probably go to 4, but I think 2 to 3 right now is working for me. I've also spoken at my detox center. My sponsor runs a meeting every month at the detox center, and I've talked 4 different times at the detox center. The first time that I talked, I thought I was going to die. I was so nervous. I was sweating. I was shaking. By the end of it, I was almost completely wet. But what made it so worth it were about 2 to 3 people that came up to me afterwards that said that a few things that I had said really made an impact with them, and that it was almost like I got high afterwards. It was a really, really amazing feeling to be able to come out of that and hear from other people that I said something that meant something to them. So I hope I've said something tonight that can help somebody here. I'm so appreciative for this program. I've had a really, really bad case of Peter Pan syndrome for a long time. Being a queer man, I made an excuse constantly saying that because I'm put upon or because I'm different, I have an excuse to get wasted all the time. And it's just not the case. It's a real big waste. I'm just so glad that I'm here today with you guys in this room. Thank you very much.
Okay, now it's time for our main speaker. Please welcome a very special person, Terrin.
I'm gonna try.
You're going to try.
Jan.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I'm so nervous. Oh well, get over it. Terrin alcoholic. You know, part of my story is going to mention other people and tell a little bit of other people's stories, because in my life it's a very complicated, intertwined situation because it's a family disease. Very much a family disease. What can I say? I grew up one of 6 children of an alcoholic mother who was sort of, in my estimation, a cross between Ginger Rogers and Elizabeth Taylor. The reason I mention Elizabeth Taylor is because my mom was married. All 6 of us had different fathers. Now, that's not to say, I don't want to make it sound like my mother, there's a word for it, but I'm not. She wasn't. She just came out of the 50s, and if you had sex, you got pregnant because she didn't do anything about birth control. And I don't think my mom really liked kids that much. But she married them. You know, she would get married, and then, you know, they would ultimately, and I will just say this, all of my stepfathers were sort of on the peripheral of the lives, and they were all alcoholic. I maybe not my older brother Stephen's dad. I don't know. I can't say every one of them were an alcoholic. I know that my father was an alcoholic, but he did stand up and show up for me, but it was kind of an unusual story. But my mother was an alcoholic, and she got married a lot, and my particular father, my mother was a ballroom dancer, and she was a ballroom dancer, the type of dancer I got to watch her a lot, like I would say Ginger Rogers, and she did a lot of exhibition ballroom dancing, but alcoholism got in the way of that. And she met my father and married my father because all these men were always supposed to be the savior, but they never did save her. And what my mother did was find the next one. And my dad came home, and everything was gone, and my mother was gone, and she had married the next stepfather, who was a really good man. And all of my brothers and sisters use his last name, and we grew up that way. And he wound up dying of a heart attack, you know. And I was very young. I used to like to hide under the table, but alcoholism was always a part of my life. I remember after his death, that stepfather's death, my mother, one night, we couldn't wake her up. She would pass out on the couch, and we couldn't wake her up. And my brother Steve he's also sober on the program. He was about 10 years old, and I was young, and it was dark, and someone was trying to get into our house. And I remember my brother going around. We had this huge house in Eagle Rock, and I remember my brother having a knife and shaking like this. We couldn't wake my mother up off the sofa. She was passed out drunk. And I don't know if this guy was really there to get bad intention, or he was just some guy maybe that she met at a bar and thought he could get some and wanted to get in the house. Do you know what I mean? No, I'm serious. It was bad. So my brother was scared, and we were running around locking all the doors. But that was kind of how we grew up, was with that fear, you know. And what happened was she got sober. And by my 10th birthday, she was sober. And she got sober with David Barge. David Barge was one of the guys that got sober at the same time my mother did. And she met my next stepfather, who was sober in the program for a long time. And I just want to say that I never got to drink with careless abandon. Alcohol was ruined for me before I ever picked up my first drink. My mother, as part of her AA thing, when she got sober, she started doing needle pointing, and she needle pointed all those things. You know, easy does it, one day at a time. There was a little metal thing on my coffee table that had the Serenity Prayer. And I'm like reading it very confused. I think she even had this shit on the wall. I mean, I was like, what? So, you know, and as kids, my mom's sober, and we used to play little AA meeting. You know, what else do you do? Other kids were playing doctor, we're playing little AA meeting. You know, and we'd choose the leader, and, you know, we'd read all the literature. And, you know, alcohol was very scary to me, you know. And my first drink was this girl that asked me to spend the night. I went to spend the night, and she's like, we're in sleeping bags in the living room, and she's like, let's go get something out of the fridge. So we go into the fridge, and there's Boone's Farms apricot wine. And she took a sip, and I took a sip, and we ran back to the sleeping bags, and we're laying there, and I'm just like, okay, so what's going to happen? And nothing happened. I'm like, screw this. I got back up, went back to the refrigerator, drank some more. Then went and laid down and went, and then finally went back to the refrigerator and drank some more. I knew something was going to happen. Something was supposed to happen there, because it was the big feared alcohol, and I was doing that. And every drink I took was always, am I an alcoholic? And finally my friend just said, you can't do that. They're going to notice. But it didn't occur to me. She drank because we were doing something naughty. I drank, and I knew I was supposed to get a feeling. And And that's where it was for me. It was all about, my mother was going to AA, and there was always a fear attached to alcoholism. It's like when people get sober and then they go out again, their drinking is broken. Mine was broken from the get-go. And then and alcohol, like up into high school or whatever, and my brothers and sisters would have parties and they'd get drunk when my mom was gone. Lots of stuff happened. Crazy chaos with 6 kids in the family. The only one who probably escaped alcoholism was my sister Adele, but she married it all the time. She also got married a lot and had a lot. She had 8 kids. By the time she passed away, she had 8 children. And so she liked to marry alcoholics, but the rest of us are alcoholics. And that's why I say it's a family disease. So what happened was all of my family members started dropping into AA like flies. Literally, my older sister got sober, then my brother got sober, my younger sister got sober, my younger brother got sober. I think I was the last one of the alcoholics to cross the thresholds of Alcoholics Anonymous. And I just remember my survival instinct, alcohol was taking me down, and it was preventing me from having a life. And at one day I surrendered and said, okay, it's time to join the family religion. That's what it was to me. It was the family religion. And I'd like to say that drugs were part of my story. I did drugs a couple of times, but I was so fearful of it. I liked alcohol because I thought, like all alcoholics do, that I could control that substance. I never knew what any drug was going to do to me, and I don't like unpredictability. I don't want anything in my system where I don't know what's going to happen to me. I thought mistakenly so that I could control alcohol, which is like control was my biggest thing. So I joined AA, and I want to say that I sometimes think, oh God, I feel so sorry for the young people in AA today, because I'm telling you right now, the 80s were the bomb in AA. You guys, if you're young, you got to start some stuff up, like do some stuff. We had dances. We had crazy dances. We would go up to Hollywood. We would dance all night. We'd go out to coffee shops. And show up to the beach meeting in the morning. And I'm not saying you aren't having fun, but you're just not letting us old people know about it. But I did the roundup. I did shows. I played, Lucille Ball at the roundup and did all this really crazy stuff. We did the Wizard of Oz, and I was Dorothy. All this nut stuff we did when we were sober, and it was a really super fun time. And one time thought I was so special. I was going to go give the 10-minute pitch, and Frank Priest, I don't know, some of you older people might know who Frank Priest was. He was doing the main speaker. And we went to a coffee shop before, and I'm like, I'm a speaker. And Frank was doing the main pitch. But there was this guy there who was so rude, and he was an Al-Anon. And if I offend any Al-Anons, I apologize, but my ex-husband's an Al-Anon, so I married it. And I hate to say that, I married it. That's a really awful thing to say. But, he was an Al-Anon. He could drink 1 beer. And I can't tell you, for me, AAs who are married to Al-Anons, God bless you. I couldn't stand it. I watching him drink was so frustrating to me. Like, what's the point? 1 beer, what is the point? I don't get it. Why would you do it? What a waste. So that was my opinion about it. But I married this Al-Anon, and going to meetings, and we had a daughter. This is hard for me to go through, but we had this beautiful angel daughter, and I'm going to say this, and I don't want anybody to come at me, because it was really true. The theory was that a vaccination slowly began to deteriorate her brain. And she was terminally ill for a very long time. From age 2, we discovered that there was her brain was demyelinating. And from 2 to 7, I had to watch her die. And that was really the most torturous thing you could possibly put me through. But I didn't drink. I did not drink. After she passed away, I was 13 years sober. I distinctly remember that because I bought myself this plastic purse that had a 13 on it, as you know, and I'm sitting on the little wall where the bus used to come drop her off, and that's what I remember, 13. But what happened was, it's like I was so angry at God that I just, you know, that's the thing. When they say you have to have a higher power and a reliance on a higher power, when you're so angry at God, because in my opinion, God took that child, and why would he do that? And it's a punishing God. And that anger, what do you do with it? Most people, you should lean into the program when bad things like that happen. And what I did was I half leaned in and I half drew away, and I didn't know how to face people, and I didn't know how to show up to meetings. I didn't know how to tell the truth. And I watched my Al-Anon husband drink, not alcoholically, like one beer, and I started to develop what I would call, and I term the coin, drink envy. I don't recommend it. And I did that from 13 years sober to 18 years sober. I developed drink envy. And now look, I will tell you this. So I got sober when I was in my 20s, very early on in my 20s. I spent my 20s and my 30s sober. So I was very close to like 20 years sober, right? My daughter died at 13 years sobriety. And I'm not saying it's an excuse, because I know a lot of people who lose children and they don't drink. And I don't even know if it was her death that made me drink. I think it was my disconnect with a higher power that I was so angry at. I didn't know what to do with that anger. And all the great things in my life that I've accomplished happened while I was in Alcoholics Anonymous and sober. I got a job at a college. I got tenure. Great job. I bought a house. I did all this stuff while I was sober in AA. And then I think it was in about 1999, right? I developed drink envy after I had the house. That Al-Anon was, but unfortunately, it's like he was very judgmental of me, but he did go to the store and buy me one of my first bottles of wine when I decided in my brain that I was no longer an alcoholic. And the other thing that didn't help me is one of my younger sister, she decided she wasn't an alcoholic. And it's very easy to say, well, because everybody got sober and my mom was sober, I just brainwashed myself. I brainwashed myself into being an alcoholic. I'm not really an alcoholic. How do I even know I'm an alcoholic? I was 20 and I convinced myself. And that Al-Anon became more and more annoying, although he did buy me bottles of wine, because I don't know what that was about, but whatever. Not his fault, though. Not his fault. I went away from AA, and my younger sister went away from AA, and I said, if she can drink, I can drink, and if he can drink as an Al-Anon, I can drink as an Al-Anon, and maybe I'm just not an alcoholic. And so I started drinking again, and the control was so painful, Head full of AA, belly full of booze, very painful, very painful. So, what do you do when you've got an Al-Anon who's not an alcoholic judging your drinking? You divorce it. You got to get rid of that guy and get yourself a good alcoholic to hang out with. So I switched him out for a really, this guy rode a motorcycle. He was a drummer in a band. He drank more than me, so I didn't look so crazy like that Al-Anon tried to teach me that I was. And it was awesome. Sold my house, bought another house, still had the good job. And then what happened was, you know, I was drinking a little bit, and I was going to go off to teach my night class, a comedy class, right? You can have a little few drinks to go teach a comedy class, right? So he was at home taking care of the kids, and I'd bought myself this nice mint-colored Volkswagen. It was beautiful, like a classic mint bug with all the chrome showing. It was so awesome. And he had a son, and I had a son, and his son was 16, and he went out and got himself a black Volkswagen Bug. And he always used to, his son was 16, always used to say, hey, let's go, you and me down Pershing. And I'm like, no. So I go off to work in the other car, and I leave my mint Bug there with my 2-year-old son, because now I have a 2-year-old son. I have an older son who's older from the Al-Anon, and I have a younger son, I call him my last call baby, with the drummer, you know, get the picture, the alcoholic drummer, who showed up to work every day. I mean, he could drink beer and go to work. So that was the guy for me. You know, if you're going to show up to work, that's really good. So I leave, I go off to teach my comedy class, and him and the 16-year-old son got into the 2 Volkswagens, strapped the 2-year-old in the back, and decided to go for a drag race down Pershing. And I want to tell you, that man, the drummer, slammed up against the center divider with his 16-year-old son, neck and neck down Pershing, having their little drive. Somebody saw him turn the corner and knew they were riding, already called the cops. And he bounced, and he rolled that Bug right into a pole. And his body came out of the Volkswagen, and he smashed his head a bunch. Thank God for that car seat that I had strapped into that back of that Volkswagen, because it saved my kid's life. But after losing a child, and then I'm at work and I get the phone call, and I wind up at UCLA with this 2-year-old strapped in a board because they're checking the kid out, and then that man is fighting for his life. I didn't give a crap about him anymore at that point. But see, what he did was, when he got home, he brought himself some beer, and he'd also got himself some big pint of some heavy-duty alcohol. And I want to tell you, that man, he spent 3 months at UCLA, I must have been a year somewhere else. And because he was my kid's dad, I went ahead and helped him recover from that. But it scared me sober. And it scared me sober. Because I knew, what is that? Child Protective Services was going to come check me out, because they knew he was drunk. They knew child endangerment, 2 cases, 16-year-old and the 2-year-old. But that's what people do in a full blackout. You know, there was a guy named Rockin' Robin that was around the first years I was sober, the first 18. I don't even know if he lasted that. But every time he went out and got in an accident, he came back missing body parts. You had no idea what it was like when you were younger to watch Rockin' Robin come back in missing an eye. Now he's missing a leg. Every time he came back, he was missing body parts. Well, I had this man who was now, they said, brain damage and never going to recover from this thing. Now, he did get sober as a result of that. He's not in AA, and I helped him recover from that, but it scared me sober. It scared me sober, but it didn't last, because without AA, I couldn't stay sober. So I stayed sober for about 5 years on my own during this time period. And then one Christmas Eve, I'm feeling sorry for myself, I picked up a drink again, because why not? And, you know, then it took my older sister dying, and I spiraled. I spiraled. You know, it's that alcoholism where you want to go out and you want to socialize, and you drink too much and you drive home anyway. And you know what? Alcohol did that thing to me that I hated, where I couldn't go back. I couldn't sleep. The alcohol was craving more, and I couldn't sleep. And not sleeping was so painful for me. I finally just, you know, driving by the Hermosa Club all the time, the Al-Anon Club where I first got sober, and wanting to go in there and not able to do it. You know, not able to just do that. And I'll tell you what happened. I managed to hold on to that job, and because, you know, when you've had a few drinks before you teach an acting class, The actors think you're fucking cool. You know, it's cool the teacher drinks, you know? But really, it's ethically not cool, you know? And I got away with it. And I almost lost all that. I think I would have eventually lost all that. But what happened to me was I had a show that I was directing. It was a good show. But the last closing performance, I went out between intermission and the night show, the evening show, and I never made it back. Because I went to Freedom Mistros and I was drinking. I first started at a bar with this older lady, and then we went out to Freedom Mistros. And I went into a blackout. I have no idea what happened. But apparently I'm sitting in there drinking wine, and there was a baby at a table at a family group, and I just didn't like the way that mother was taking care of that baby. So, and these are the stories you find out. You have to ask questions like, what did I do? I paid the bill, I know, because it showed up on my credit card. And I drove there in my little Mini Cooper, right? And apparently I got up, picked this baby up, calmed the baby down. Apparently I was like Mother Teresa with this baby. But the mother didn't like it. She did not like that. So by the time I had paid the bill and walked out, the handcuffs were on me. And I went to jail. And my AA older brother, who has 40 years now, knew exactly how to get a hold of me. I didn't come home that night. He knew what, he said, I'm going to call 2 jails, the El Segundo jail and Santa Monica jail. So anyway, and that's what did it for me. I didn't get charged with anything. I didn't get a D. Thank God I didn't get to the car. They held me in for kidnapping. Didn't stick. But they kept me there overnight because all these last names of all my stepfathers came back. And who has all those aliases but somebody who's up to no good, right? So they checked my driver's license and all these old names are coming up. Like the woman told me in the jail, she said, we would let you go right now, but we can't because you came up with a bunch of aliases and we got to really check you out. But I did get out of there and I got away with it. I got away with it. And I'd like to say that was my last drink. I took an Uber home and I called my brother. And I felt completely humiliated. But I'm going to say this. My younger brother's sober 30 plus, 40 years. My older brother's sober 40 years. My older sister's sober 40 years. And that younger sister, she was in and out of the program. She never quite got it back. You know what I mean? I was able to get it back. And I'm not saying all I have is today. I have 12 again now. But I came back in. I went to Bob Miller's funeral. And AA wasn't as scary as I thought. Everybody looked at me and said, God, it's nice to see you. Wish you'd come back. Cheryl, all the people. Meryl, everybody who was at Bob Miller's, they reached their hand out to me. So, and I was going to try to get sober on my own after that, Frito Mistro kidnapping charge for picking up a baby. I was going to try it on my own again. But after that, and I realized AA wasn't so scary, I walked back in the rooms. And then I immediately got commitments. I was a secretary before I even had a few months because nobody else wanted it. And I said, I'll do it. And I did literature person and I was of service. That's what I did. I took on commitments. That helped me so much. Now, I am going to tell, I don't even know where am I at 10 yet? 20 minutes. Okay, good. I don't know what else. I don't know what else I can say. Well, I can say a lot because I will say this. I made it back to AA for these 12 years. And I leaned into the program. I will say this. I still struggle with God. I still get angry at God. When you lose a child, it will never go away. But my younger sister, I would go to meetings and she was in a recovery home, and I would go to the recovery home in my car, and I'd pick her and all these girls up, and I'd take them to the women's meetings, and then I'd go drop them back off. But my sister never would give up. I don't want to say what was for her. It was like she would never give up the pot. I'm sorry. But if you be alcoholic, that fringe stuff, the high's never going to be good enough. You're going to want to go to your drug of choice. For me, it's alcohol. And like I said, that the party favor stuff, I probably would have indulged if I didn't have such a fear. You know what I mean? If I didn't have a knowledge of AA from the time I was a young kid and knew about alcoholism and the disease and always asking myself, am I an alcoholic? Every drink I took, I'd either go, cheers to AA, or I'd go, am I an alcoholic? It was a test pattern all the time with me. So it was ruined. My drink was broken before I took a drink. My sister would never give that up. She'd come back in. I would see her just almost detoxing in a seat. And I tried to help her so many times. I'd go pick her up drunk, throw her in the back of my car, take her to a detox center, take her to a meeting. I'd hang out with her when she was sober. She lost her license. She got drunk and hit an old guy when she went through all kinds of stuff. And I talk about my sister because it has a major impact on me, because she lost her battle with alcohol for a lot of reasons. And I'm going to say something controversial. Like, there are people who are on the fringe of AA who helped bring her about her downfall. And I'm going to talk about it. They helped bring about her downfall. One gentleman with, 20 years of sobriety brought her last bottle of booze. Don't know what that motivation was. People who no longer are in AA, who were in AA, gave her Xanax, gave her all kinds of stuff, party favors that she could, But I will say this, my sister was good at getting that. She was good at getting what she needed, what she wanted. But she hurt her arm, and she continued to drink, and then you get the call. You get the call that she's in an emergency room, she's had some sort of stroke, and you go there, and she's laying on the gurney, and the emergency people in the place are trying to explain to me what her situation is, like alcohol, benzos, and all kinds of combo going on. Plus, I think she hurt her arm and she went into a blackout, and she didn't really know how much Tylenol PM she took. You understand? And I know she didn't commit suicide. They tried to do that. But I wasn't quite getting it. They said they were going to stick something that was up her butt. Sorry to say that. That was going to, some charcoal thing to maybe try to do something. I don't know what that is, but they were trying to explain this to me, and I really didn't know. My kid was going to be at prom that night. So I left there for a minute to go to prom, to get my kid ready to go to prom and take pictures. And then I came back with my older son, and I saw my sister take a look at his face. And for a minute there, I saw my sister come out of this delusion she was in, and I could see the wheels turning in her brain. You know, when you could see somebody's wheels turning, clicking, 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 and I could see her look up at the TV and then look at Zach and then look at me, and I could tell it was my old sister Gia just trying to figure out, how am I going to get out of this one? And she kept saying to me, don't tell Tess, her daughter. Don't tell Tess she won't let me babysit anymore. Don't tell Tess she won't let me babysit anymore. And I could see her looking at, and I'll never want to forget her face, where she thought she was going to make it out of this one. And then she died. She lost her battle. She just had too much Tylenol in her system. Now, did she take Tylenol PM because she wanted to sleep and alcohol had kept her awake the way it kept me awake? There's some kind of buzz that I would get that would keep me from sleeping, Or I don't know what she thought. But I don't ever want to forget the look on her face. And I don't ever want to forget the look on my younger kid's face one time when I was drunk. And in his face about something, losing a Harry Potter wand or some dumbass thing we do, right? Yeah, I don't want to forget those looks because one day at a time I want to be sober. And I do want to, I always want to develop the conscious contact with my higher power. I mean, today I read 3 chapters of the New Testament because I thought, well, I'm always searching, I'm always looking. But I will say this is going to be hard to say. I know there's a higher power. When that little angel baby, my 7-year-old daughter, blonde hair, blue eyes, she looked like an angel. When she was lying there at the end of her life, and I was lying there with her, I felt the Holy Spirit. I know it was there, but it didn't stop the anger. I mean, there are days sometimes I drive down Pershing, coming home from work, and I scream at the top of my lungs for the loss of that child. But I have 2 boys. For the grace of God, I have my 2 boys. And I am guilty in this sense. I've put the fear of alcohol in them as well. I think I've broken their drinker. I'm hoping that I have. I hope their drinking's fucked up so bad that they know where to come. And that's what I have to say mostly is, this is a family disease. My mother getting sober trickled down to all of us. Only my sister Gia lost her battle. So I will just say that's one of 4 of us. Or was that 5? I'm bad at math. But anyway, there were so many of us. But my sister lost her battle. But there were times that she was sober and had a good life and had a great life. She just couldn't get it back again. She kept playing Russian roulette with her sobriety. You can't think, I'm going to go out this weekend and party it up and I'm just going to come back to AA. You might go into a blackout and take too much Tylenol. You'd never know when the bullet's going to fire out that gun. And I want to remember that. I don't want to play Russian roulette with my sobriety. I like to be of service. My older son went to Alateen and now he's in Al-Anon. He does go to Al-Anon and he's actually come to a few AA meetings with me and I don't know if he's searching or thinking maybe. And I don't know what my younger son does not drink or do anything that I know about. And I don't know if I want to know about it. His dad is doing good. That's a stubborn. Alcoholics are, that Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer movie where bumbles bounce. You know what I'm talking about? We are bumbles. We bounce. Like we bounce back. He bounced back. Now he still walks with a cane and he's crippled, but he's still doing it. And I'm really good friends with him. I don't speak to the Al-Anon. He still has major judgment on me. But that's okay. One day at a time. I do a living amends. My kid said to me one time, Mom, I'm so glad you're sober, and I'm so glad that I don't ever worry about you, that I'm not worried you're going to come home drunk or you're going to come home and be that way. And I want to remember that too, because, I'm accountable. And I always want to be accountable. And you never know. What you do today can inspire your family members, your future children, your nieces, your nephews. I have a couple nephews who are trying to get sober. There's a lot of alcoholism in my family. But the odds have been in our favor. With my older brother, 40 years sober. My older sister is 40 years sober. My younger brother is like 35 or something years sober. I'm back at 12. And I know it's not about time. It's only one day at a time. But one day at a time, I want to put the days together and be accountable. So anyway, Thank you for, I don't know where I'm at. I think I'm done. I don't know what else. I did put sheets in my glove, but I didn't pull it out. I'm going to check my notes later to see if I was on task. Anyway, thank you for letting me share.